we're going to be doing something I have not done ever on this channel. And I actually don't know why I've never done this. If you don't know already, I am a huge Formula 1 fan. I've been following Formula 1 for probably, I think 2017 or 18 I started watching it. And since then I've essentially watched almost every weekend. And today we are going to be watching something that is inside that area. Now the video today, right, is going to be about Ayrton Senna and just how good he was. Now actually, even though I'm a huge Formula 1 fan, right, I really do enjoy watching racing. It's one of the, one of the things I like doing. Even though I, have watched it for a good while, I haven't really checked out Ayrton Senna. I know he was one of the best drivers back in the day. Well, he was the best driver during his time. He was, that guy, I mean, everyone that has got any background in Formula 1 knows how he died, and that he did die while racing. But other than that, I have got absolutely no clue how exactly good he was. I mean, I've heard about, like, the stats, like, the general stats. Like, he was insanely good, I think, at qualifying. Like, he would out-qualify almost every single race. Like, he would be P1. Especially that Monaco lap. I've heard about that Monaco lap where he was so far ahead. Like, it was insane. But other than that, I don't actually know how good he was and what type of driver he was in general. So that's why I want to check out this video and find out a little bit about him and how he was during his time. If you do enjoy this reaction and you do enjoy my video, be sure to like it and also subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out. And yeah, we're gonna get right into this video, which will be in the description down below.
As he is in Brazil, he's in my heart. He always has been. He's someone I aspire to be like.
One of the best who has ever done it in F1.
We'll hear always the stories about the legacy. Will always live.
Like the nice guy could also be the killer.
It's the biggest in history.
A legend.
When the conversation of the greatest racing driver of all time is discussed, a few names are always mentioned, but one name seems to stand out from the crowd. A driver known for not only his achievements on the track, but also the impact he made off it. You would be hard-pressed to find anybody today, racing enthusiast or not, who doesn't recognise the name Ayrton Senna. But just how good was he? Well, let's find out, because you're watching Quattro Cam. My name's Alex, and this is Just How Good Was Ayrton Senna. Now, one of the biggest question marks over anybody given the moniker the greatest of all time is who they competed against. Often the argument weighing down many great sporting figures is how competitive a time did they exist in. Senna isn't one of these. You see, during his brief time in F1, Senna would race alongside some of the sport's best. Four-time drivers champion Alain Prost.
Oh, really?
Senna, and right behind him is Alain Prost.
Now, Prost is going to be very keen. Prost diving inside. Senna, I'm sure, is in tire trouble. And Alain Prost goes through.
It's Alain Prost, the world champion, winning in Mexico. Alain Prost,
he's a good driver as well, man.
Three-time drivers champion Nelson Piquet.
The only thing he can do is if he makes contact or allows Senna to make contact with him. Senna, you see,
I heard a lot about him.
making it hard. And Nelson's got round the outside of it.
Oh shit!
Big slide from Nelson and nearly contact.
Damn.
That's crazy. F1 drivers and IndyCar champion Nigel Mansell.
With Alain
Mansell,
Prost seemingly going to win it, and Mansell going round the outside. Incredible!
Oh, that is
to second
balls.
place. He's regained that second place.
Absolutely brilliant manoeuvre by Mansell.
Dude, when I'm watching these old videos of Formula 1, it looks so much more exhilarating than how it is today. Like, I'm not the type of guy who says the only way racing can be entertaining is if it's dangerous. Like, I enjoy watching F1 because of the racing aspects. I want to see someone cut through the grid from, P10 to winning the race. I want to see someone show what they're capable of doing. That's why I watch Formula 1, is because I just enjoy racing in general, and the aspect of being just great at what you do and just being better than everyone else. But nowadays, it's so much more different, because if someone is flying along and they just fly into a wall, it's probably a percentage of like 99.5% chance that they'll come out of that walking and alive. But when you watch these, they've got no halo, They're just sitting in kind of like a box with 2 pedals at the bottom. Nothing probably, I mean, I don't know how low they are, but there's nothing that's protecting them from like their shoulders down. If there's a tyre coming out, or if there's a bit of shrapnel, front wing from a car, whatever, just hits you, you're dead. It was so much more dangerous back then. And I feel like that was one of the huge things about, you know, racing, is the danger. That's, well, you can see what happened to Senna. That's one of the examples of what can happen when you race in, you know, this type of style, in these type of cars. But nowadays, it's like, you saw that Verstappen crash, where you got, you know, hit with 50-something Gs. Obviously, everyone was horrified. Oh my god, you know, is he alive? Is he okay? Yeah, he was alright, you know, after that. I feel like if you'd have that crash in these cars during these days, yeah, people would be suiting up for a funeral straight away. Nowadays, it's so safe in those cars. Like, they're built like fucking rally cars. There's no way of, like, getting hurt. It's kind of like, not as, like, thrilling when you watch a crash. You don't get the same emotions out of it, because you know it's so fucking safe. I'm not saying that they should make the cars more, you know, unsafe. But I feel like the biggest thing, like back in the day, if you were a Formula 1 driver, you're risking your life every race. But nowadays, I'm talking 2024, I don't think any of the drivers really think their life is in danger. I mean, probably sometimes. Let's say it's raining, let's just say like Baku. You know, one slip of the fucking foot, you accelerate too much, you're flying into a wall or something like that. Yeah, you're going to be a bit, you know, scared. But they ultimately know they're safe in the car. Like, there's a really low chance that you're really going to hurt yourself or die. But I just thought, like, when I'm watching these, it's like, it's so dangerous compared to today. It's insane. I'm not saying that it should be more unsafe. I'm just saying, like, you don't have the same feeling in Formula 1 as you did back in the day. And that's, you know, obvious. It's just going to change. It's how it is. But, yeah, when watching these clips, it's like, these lot crash, you know, it's it could be game over. And that's something they have to live with. Something they'd probably have to accept. Which drivers these days maybe, you know, don't have to. I don't know. I'm just waffling out my arse right now. I'm talking way too long. What am I doing? Let's get right back into it.
Fantastically brave.
All of these drivers were in their prime years, all greats, at the very best of their game. But despite this, Senna would stand out as something very different. Now, if you look at the stats, they would suggest that Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Michael Schumacher, and one Manuel Fangio were all better than Senna. But if you actually ask racing drivers, including some of those mentioned above, they will all say one name.
I think Senna, I will put him in number 1.
For me, Senna is number 1.
For me, he was number 1.
There you have it.
Ayrton Senna is number 1.
For me, Ayrton Senna undoubtedly was the number 1.
I would put him number 1. You know, he was definitely the greatest driver.
If you ask me, I put Senna as well in number 1.
And it's not just the drivers. The stats also support Senna as the master. If you take a look at pole positions won by drivers, Senna sits 3rd, behind Lewis Hamilton and sandwiched between Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, Lewis
if you
has
look
so many.
A little closer, you'll see that nobody is anywhere near him when you consider the ratio of entries to pole positions. That is, except the legendary drivers, Jim Clark and one Manuel Fangio. Arguably two drivers who could contest this crown against Senna and showcase just how far ahead of the pack they truly were. But to see Senna's prowess in action, we can look at qualifying for Monaco in 1988. Up against his teammate and future 4-time champion Alain Prost, a Hall of Fame driver in his own right, Senna would lay down a time a whole 1.5 seconds faster than this 4-time champion. And remember, this is prime Prost. Man. He won 2 of his 4 championships in 86 and 89. Just 1 season after this Monaco qualifier.
Holy
and
shit.
Senna would often drive the famous Monte Carlo streets one-handed, back when manual gearboxes still existed in Formula 1 cars.
One-handed?
Often take corners at over 80 miles an hour. Senna didn't just develop this speed, he always had it. In his rookie season in 1984, he would drive quite possibly the greatest drive of anyone ever. In an immense downpour of rain, the young rookie Senna would fly around the Monaco streets. As champion and champion crashed off the course, the young Senna would charge on, hunting down and shaving off second after second from future teammate and future four-time champion Prost, who would eventually come to stop his car in the middle of the track and complain to stewards that it was just too wet to drive.
Too wet?
Too wet for any man to race in. But Senna was no man. This wet pace would become something Senna was known for. At Donington in 1993, in an inferior car to his rivals, Senna would carve his way through the pack, as if he was driving in the dry, whilst his competitors battled it out in the wet, driving as if he was in a different reality or dimension.
Yeah, that's crazy,
to those around him. This ruthless speed was only matched by Senna's ruthless racecraft, often putting both himself and the other drivers in a position for an accident and letting his opponents decide their fate. A high-speed game of chicken that the Brazilian master would win more often than not, showcasing his mental strength with high-level psychological warfare, beating drivers not only on the track, but in their minds. Once Senna had your number, the game was up. He knew what you would do before you could do it. He was, quite literally, 5 moves ahead of you.
He was playing chess, man.
Just how ruthless and
he was playing chess over Formula 1.
In 1990, the Japanese Grand Prix, Senna would win the championship if his former teammate and future 4-time champion Alain Prost failed to finish the race. So Senna did what only Senna could do. He ended Prost's race at the very first corner, because if Prost didn't win, Senna would.
Go! And Senna sprints away, but Alain Prost takes the lead. It's happened. Alain Prost has taken the advantage.
Nah, he's just gonna dive bomb.
Oh
shit!
This is amazing. Senna goes off at the first corner.
Oh no!
And, that's a very sad way for this year's very exciting World Championship to finish.
Notice the distinct lack of tyre smoke. Senna was playing chess, as his rivals played checkers. And I mean that quite literally. Senna would often play chess with master tactician Sir Frank Williams, developing his mind, not just his driving. Senna was built to win. Every fibre of his being was focused on one thing: winning. Because if you cannot do what it takes to win, you will only ever come second.
By being a racing driver, you are under risk all the time. And by being a racing driver means you are racing with
That's the famous line.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. Because we are competing. We are competing to win. And the main motivation to all of us is to compete for a victory. You either commit yourself as a professional racing driver that is designed to win races, or you come second, or you come third, or you come fifth. And I'm not designed to come third, fourth, or fifth. I race to win, as long as I feel is possible.
It wasn't just speed and ruthlessness that Senna had in his arsenal. He was also an expert tactician. Senna would sit down and discuss every aspect of the car and tracks to make sure that man and machine were as in sync as possible. Senna worked just as hard off the track as he did on it. In an era where racing drivers were like rock and roll stars, Senna remained focused and planted, proving hard work beats talent, and hard work with God-given talent is unstoppable. His race engineer, Pat Simmons, is one of few people who could see this firsthand. There was one area at Dallas where just about everyone hit the wall. He hit it there too. When he got back to the pits, he said, "I just cannot understand how I did that. I was taking it no differently than I had before. The wall must have moved." We thought, yeah, right, sure, the wall's moved. He was very insistent on this, so after the race, we went out and had a look. The wall had moved.
What?
It was concrete blocks, and someone had clipped it, moved it just a few millimeters. And I mean just a few millimeters. And he had been judging it that perfectly.
No
Senna
way.
did all of this whilst driving in what can only be described as a jet engine on wheels. The racing cars of the day had very little downforce.
That does not sound like it could be true. If it's few millimeters, there's no way, right? That is a different type of precision from him. If that's how it happened, I'm pretty sure that's probably how it happened then, I suppose. Well, that's crazy if that's true. Jesus.
And squirrely and nervous. Add in the 1,200 horsepower engines, a whole 200 horsepower more than modern cars, even with their electric assistance. And you can begin to understand just how much skill was required to keep these cars the right way up. But outside of all of this, Senna was also One of the most compassionate
have
people
to drive it
ever
manual
walk
as
the
well.
surface of the air. He was deeply religious and believed in living life right in the eyes of God, even risking his own life to save the lives of others.
Friday morning was nice and sunny, but not for Eric Comas, who crashed heavily in the fast Blanchimont sweep before the pits.
Damn.
Ayrton Senna was the first to reach the scene of the crash, and he rushed to help the motionless Frenchman.
At Spa in 1992, Senna would stop his car
Never seen this
and
before.
run down the track, dodging his fellow competitors' cars by inches, so he could check on the welfare of driver Eric Comas. When he reached the car, Comas was unconscious. Senna turned off his engine so to avoid a fire and stood there in the middle of the track, holding Comas's head upright to help protect his spine. He literally stood in the middle of a live racetrack to make sure somebody else
that is crazy.
was okay.
So I didn't realize immediately that it probably saved my life, but then talking with the engineers and seeing the car, how the car was destroyed, and seeing the pictures and all the leaks on the cars, well, it's a day that maybe without Ayrton I could not talk about today.
Damn.
He often talked
What
about
a
starting a
G,
charitable
though.
foundation to help children back in his home country of Brazil. And this is what added to Senna's magnetism. On one hand, he would run drivers off the track, risking both their lives in the pursuit of the podium. And in the other, he would risk his own life to save that of another driver, sacrificing time and money to improve the lives of those less fortunate than his own. Senna even donated a reported $400 million to children's charities.
Holy
during his career,
shit!
a fact that was only known after his death because he wanted to avoid the publicity.
Wow.
Senna gave everything he had
That
to
is
those
humble,
around him.
isn't it?
In 1989, Senna and fellow driver Gerhard Berger would walk Imola to see what they could do to improve the course's safety. Stopping at Tamburello Corner, they climbed through a partition in the retaining wall to investigate the surroundings. Senna wanted to move the retaining wall back, but there was a river just behind it. He feared somebody would die in that spot. Returning in 1994, Senna would witness the death of Austrian driver Roland Ratzenberger in qualifying. This had a profound effect on Senna, who hid an Austrian flag in his car as a tribute he planned to unveil at the end of the next day's Grand Prix, a fact nobody was aware of. Senna would never get to fly the flag for Ratzenberger. Whilst leading the race, Senna would go off at the corner he was stood on those 5 years previous. Senna was right about one thing: somebody would die on that corner. The 1st of May 1994 is probably the most well-known date in F1 history. The world lost quite possibly its greatest driver, and most definitely its greatest son. Senna would continue to save lives after his death. Days of mourning were declared in Brazil, and over 3 million people lined the streets for his funeral procession. Such was the impact of his death. Safety was now front and centre. It had cost the sport possibly its greatest ever driver. Something that could not be allowed to happen again. And it is hard to find a word, if one even exists, when you think of all the drivers that have lost their lives needlessly. How it took the death of Senna, and not of any of these other drivers, to really make things change. So Senna was a different species. A driver not only of immense God-given talent, but also immense dedication to his craft. A win-at-all-costs attitude, but with compassion for his fellow drivers and humans. Senna was perhaps the perfect athlete, the perfect human being. So what do you think to the question of just how good was Senna? Where would you rank him amongst the greats? And is Senna the greatest of all time?
Yeah, I would say it's hard to, you know, when you've not seen a full season or whatever. But yeah, if he's absolutely demolishing someone like Prost in his prime years, in his rookie season, I'm pretty sure he said, then yeah, he is gonna have to be at the top. He's gonna have to be up there. He might be the best of the best. I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there. But I mean, that is just crazy to me that he literally, what was it, 5 years before said someone's gonna die here because of it being pretty dangerous on that part of the track, and then he dies years later on that same spot. I don't know how the fuck something like that ever happens. I mean, that is pretty weird if that is true. But yeah, every time like there's something like this where someone, you know, crashes and dies, or if there's someone that gets into an accident, I always think about like imagine if he didn't crash. Imagine if that didn't happen. How different everything would be. Would he have been like a 10-time world champion, or like would he have been different in any sort of way? You know, it's always like that when someone gets into an accident and dies, or you know, whatever. I always think, what if that never happened? But yeah, like I've always said this with Formula 1. The main way you can see someone's skill, because there's a lot to do with cars. The cars are always biggest differential if someone's going to win a race or not. Obviously you can say it's the skill of the driver and all this, but let's be fucking real here. If the car is shit and they can't use their skill or showcase how good they are because of the car being garbage, then it's just not going to happen, right? You're not going to have a chance. So I think the biggest factor into seeing if someone's really fucking good at driving and racing is what they can do in the rain. If someone can do something astonishing and insane in the rain compared to other drivers, you know, just flying past others while they're like, what the fuck? How is he doing that? Then he's obviously a fucking beast of a driver. And you saw the clip there, and what he said during that race, that Prost even said it's undrivable, even though Senna was fucking, you know, just hauling ass. I mean, you know, just from that, you should know that he's got a skill set, and he's a real fucking driver. That's for sure. I don't know if you lot saw the last race in Brazil. Absolutely lashing down. Max Verstappen had probably one of the greatest drives I've seen in a fucking while. Like, in a while. Even though I'm not a Max Verstappen fan, that drive was insane, I must admit. He got a bit lucky there, but to be able to get lucky, you need to put yourself into a position of getting lucky. And he did that by fucking, I think he overtook he was 17th, and he got to P9, I think. No, I don't know. He overtook maybe like 7 or 8 people in the first few laps in the rain. So, yeah. Verstappen, even though I do kind of hate him and I hate his driving style, I absolutely hate it, he is really good, and his racing craft is pretty fucking magnificent in the rain. But yeah, we're going to end off there because this video has gotten pretty fucking long. I did not expect it to be this long now. Hope you did enjoy this video. If you want me to watch more Formula 1 videos in the future, then be sure to let me know by subscribing and, you know, liking the video so that I know that you enjoyed this type of video. As always, be sure to stay safe, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video coming out very soon. I hope.